extremely radical, revolutionary figure that was going to bring more change than they had seen since the time of the prophets.
Number 10, Martin Luther. Martin Luther was the former monk responsible for the Protestant Reformation. Dissatisfied with perceived corruption within the church, Luther sought change. He loathed indulgences or the notion that wealthy people could pay the church a bribe to ameliorate their sins.
Your Pope, the Vicar of Christ, sends you a gift to save you from such fires. A special indulgence granted for the building of St. Peter's Church in Rome.
He believed that the Latin Mass alienated the clergy from the people. He wanted the liturgy to be delivered in the vernacular language along with Latin. Luther also emphasized the importance of inner spiritual repentance over Catholic sacraments and confession. He posted his ideas to the door of All Saints Church in Wittenberg.
Christ did not command the preaching of indulgences, but of the gospel.
With the help of the Gutenberg printing press, Luther's ideas spread like wildfire. While centuries of sectarian violence were an unintended consequence, Luther's ideas sparked a new age in Christian theology. Number 9, St. Peter. In the Christian Bible, Peter was one of 12 apostles of Jesus Christ. Despite being one of a dozen, he ended up being the most important.
His spirit, Catholics believe, now guards the gates of heaven. His body entombed at St. Peter's Basilica.
According to the book of Matthew, Jesus approached Peter and said that he would be the rock upon which Jesus' church would be built. Both the Catholic and Orthodox churches consider Peter to have been the first ever bishop of Rome. That also makes him the first pope.
Now, the official view of the Vatican is that by coming to Rome and being martyred here, Peter becomes its first bishop, the first of an unbroken line of popes that stretches all the way to the present day.
Though Peter was crucified by Emperor Nero, his impact on Christendom couldn't be stopped. The Roman Catholic Church grew to be one of the most powerful, wealthiest, and influential religions in the history of the world. Number 8, Maimonides. Moses ben Maimon, aka Maimonides, aka Rambam, was a true Renaissance man centuries before the Renaissance. He was a scholar, an astronomer, and the personal physician of Saladin.
He also mastered what we call chokhmah, which is the universal wisdom of humankind. He knew the works of Aristotle and Plato and their Islamic interpreters and so on.
His philosophical, mathematical, and scientific studies were incredibly popular throughout the Muslim world. His lasting legacy, however, was in Jewish law and ethics. Born in Spain, his journey took him to Morocco and then Egypt, where he led the Jewish community. By 1180, Maimonides completed his magnum opus, a 14-volume codification of Jewish halakha, or law, titled the Mishnah Torah. Today, the Mishnah Torah is still a significant work in Jewish religions and legal analysis.
In his introduction, Rambam promised those who learned his work, study the Torah of Moses, and then study my Mishnah Torah, and you will be fluent in Jewish law.
Even his critics are forced to contend with his interpretations. Number 7, Krishna.
Krishna is seen and perceived and understood and experienced in many, many different ways by different people.
In Hinduism, the god Vishnu incarnates as a human from time to time to restore balance between good and evil. The 8th of these incarnations was Lord Krishna. According to Hindu tradition, Krishna lived almost 5,000 years ago. His life, adventures, and death are documented in many Hindu holy texts, especially the Bhagavad Gita. He's been portrayed as a child, a lover, a trickster, and a hero during different phases of his life. Krishna's teachings and beliefs became cornerstones of Hindu philosophy and theology. His focus on sacred love and fulfilling human longing for the divine have had a profound influence not just on Hinduism. Vishnu and Krishna worship have helped influence Buddhism and sects of Islam. Ahmadiyya Muslims consider Krishna to be a prophet. Number 6, Confucius.
2,000 years on, this man remains a singular cultural figure, and his influence is found through boardrooms, classrooms, and living rooms around the world.
Born around 551 BCE, Confucius was a middle-class government bureaucrat. His skill and wisdom led to a swift rise in social standing and power. Later in life, he would travel from one Chinese state to another, spreading his philosophy wherever he went.
Confucius exemplified benevolence and integrity, and through his teaching became one of China's greatest philosophers.
Confucianism is not a religion so much as an all-encompassing system of mostly secular beliefs. Confucius believed in both personal morality and a morally guided state. He emphasized the importance of education, family, and ancestor worship. When in politics, he advocated for peace and diplomacy over warfare. Confucianism grew to be the primary philosophy in China from the imperial age to the modern era. It's central to East Asian culture and has shaped the lives of untold billions.
For many, it is important to memorialize the man who offered so much wisdom to the Chinese culture.
Number 5. Moses.
That you may know the power of the Lord. For 7 days Egypt will thirst.
Moses was an Egyptian-raised Jewish prince who grew up witnessing the atrocities against his people. God ultimately commanded Moses to help set them free. After a series of plagues, Moses and his followers escaped Egypt, wandering the desert to reach their promised land.
Behold his mighty hand!
God presented Moses with 2 stone tablets outlining his 10 main commandments for how the Jewish people should live.
Do not kneel to me, Joshua.
These tablets of stone.
The writing of God.
But his impact isn't confined to Judaism. Moses is a major prophet in Islam and has had a huge impact on Christianity. An entire strain of Christian thought, liberation theology, is rooted in the story of Moses. The belief that freeing the oppressed from their oppressors has been central to Western strains of Christianity, from Latin America to Martin Luther King Jr. Number 4. Zoroaster. Zoroastrianism is the largest, oldest religion you've never heard of before.
One of the oldest religions on the planet, it has influenced Judaism, Islam, and even Christianity.
Zoroaster, or Zarathustra, was an ancient figure who would have lived 2,500 to 3,500 years ago. His faith became the major religion of the ancient Persian Empire, dominating the region for 1,000 years until Islam. There are no real details about the man, Zoroaster, just his significant religious legacy. Zoroastrianism is the first documented monotheistic faith in human history.
They were the dominant religion on earth from 600 years before Jesus Christ to 600 years after his death.
It introduced the concept of an absolute good battling an absolute evil. It also was the first major religion to discuss heaven, hell, free will, eternal judgment, a messiah, or angels and demons. Without Zoroastrianism, the foundational beliefs of 3 Abrahamic religions that sprouted in its place might never existed. Number 3. Siddhartha Gautama.
The Buddha, the Indian sage whose story inspired one of the world's great religions.
Siddhartha Gautama was an Indian prince who lived around 500 years before the birth of Christ. He was wealthy, self-indulgent, and ignorant of all the world's problems. When he witnessed poverty and suffering in his subjects, his entire life changed. He espoused a life of asceticism, eschewing earthly attachments in order to achieve enlightenment.
There is no knowledge won without sacrifice. In order to gain anything, you must first lose everything.
He became known as the Buddha, and his religion spread all over Asia. Buddhism isn't just a religion, it's an ethical system and philosophy. Buddhism started a social movement in India, bucking against the caste system, attracting the poor and the oppressed. Everywhere Buddhism spread, it changed, incorporating parts of local culture and religions. Today, Buddhism is the world's 4th largest religion with over 500 million followers. Number 2. Muhammad.
1400 years ago, a man born here in Mecca in Saudi Arabia changed the course of world history.
Islam, the world's 2nd largest faith, was founded by the Prophet Muhammad. Muslims believe that Muhammad was the last in a long line of prophets. His words are, in their estimation, the culmination of everything espoused by Judaism and Christianity. Muhammad unified a large chunk of the Arab world.
If you had to rate the top people in the history of the world as leaders, the name of Muhammad would be in the top 3.
In the centuries following his life, the spread of Islam led to a golden age of science and philosophy in the region.
The Islamic Empire was the center of progress in literature to philosophy, science to medicine, and mathematics to art.
The world's first ever university was established in Morocco in 859. Mathematics, astronomy, and science underwent significant advancement. In modern times, fundamentalist Islam has clashed with the West. Those conflicts have underpinned much of the geopolitical landscape of the 21st century. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Guru Nanak. This poet and scholar traveled the world and founded Sikhism.
We're talking about a visionary who played a role in reshaping society.
Sai Baba of Shirdi. Sai Baba is one of the few people to become both a Hindu saint and a Muslim fakir.
He existed as a complete consciousness, pure consciousness. So that's the main thing about Baba.
Saint Augustine. This bishop of Hippo Regius was the most important theologian of early Christendom.
He lived a tumultuous early life, but ended up saving the church from 2 major controversies, and is certainly a saint you should know.
Dalai Lama Gendun Drup. Gendun Drup was the first of 14 human reincarnations of the Bodhisattva of compassion.
An enlightened being who's chosen rebirth as a human being so he can be on this world to help others.
Joseph Smith Jr. Joseph Smith founded Mormonism, one of the fastest growing religions of the 21st century.
Latter-day Saints believe that God called Joseph Smith to restore the fullness of his gospel to the earth.
Number 1. Jesus.
Overall, Jesus' formative years were relatively simple. But one day, the boy Jesus becomes a man who challenges an empire and earns the name King of Kings.
To Christians, Jesus of Nazareth was and is the Son of God. To others, he was a rabbi and a prophet. Whatever your beliefs, we can all agree that Christianity has been a major engine for 2 millennia of human history. Jesus preached a morality that transcended the law, attracting the poor and downtrodden of the Roman Empire.
Extremely radical, revolutionary figure that was going to bring more change than they had seen since the time of the prophets.
Christianity was later shaped by St. Paul, a Jewish convert who wrote much of what we now know as the Christian Bible. While Jesus preached compassion, love, and kindness, his followers haven't always lived up to his example. For centuries, Christianity spread throughout the world through warfare as much as through the gospel. Today, it is the world's largest religion, spreading to every corner of the planet. We live in a world shaped by generations of religious leaders and prophets. Which did we leave off our list that you think should be on it? Please let us know in the comments below.
Many problem is our own creation. We forget oneness of humanity.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.